Andheri East, presented with the chief complaints of weakness in his left upper limb and lower limb since 4 days, and dribbling of saliva from the left corner of his mouth since 4 days. The informant, being himself and his wife, both are reliable, and the patient is right-handed. He was apparently well 4 days ago when he suddenly felt that he could not move his left side very well as he woke up. He said that he could not hold a cup, but he could raise his arm. The weakness progressed over the next few hours, and by afternoon he could not move his left upper limb and lower limbs at all. At this point, there was no disparity in weakness between proximal and distal muscles. There was no change in his weakness after this point. He also experienced dribbling of saliva from the left angle of his mouth. He was brought to the emergency room and has been admitted since then. Inquiring about the associated symptoms, there is no history of pain or altered sensations. There is no history of diplopia or disturbance of vision. There is no history of...
Kshitij, 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You can hear me, na? Okay. You talked about his weakness in the left upper limb. What about the lower limb? What questions did you ask to check the weakness in the lower limbs?
Sir, for proximal muscles, if he is able to climb stairs, and for distal muscles, if he is able to put on his slippers.
Okay, there is no. And regarding sensory, how did you check the upper limb and lower limb?
There are no sensory disturbances on history.
But how? No. But on history, how did you ask? How did you come to know that he doesn't have any upper limb or lower limb involvement sensory?
If he has any tingling, numbness, or
any positive symptoms or negative symptoms, any other?
No, sir. These were the chief complaints.
Can you feel his clothes? Can you feel his shirt? Can you feel his pants?
Yes, sir. Yes,
that is sensory, not touch sensation.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. And while taking a bath, or was he able to feel hot or cold sensations?
Yes, sir. Temperature sensations.
So you have to ask that also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you talked about the motor weakness. So you covered now the sensory also.
Yes, sir.
You can continue.
Okay. There is no history of diplopia or disturbance of vision. There is no history of dysphagia or nasal regurgitation.
You want to talk about his face?
Sir, face, he experienced a dribbling of saliva from the left angle of his mouth, and the rest of his facial actions, like wrinkling of forehead, closing his eyebrows.
On symptoms I'm asking. On history, did you would you want to know anything on history regarding the nerve involvement? Because I feel that you have covered your motor of the left upper limb as well as lower limb. You have covered the sensory of left upper and lower limb, and you talked about in chief complaint about left angle of the mouth dribbling of saliva.
Yes,
so any other symptom you want to ask about the cranial nerve before we go on to diplopia and all that?
So if he can
any other major cranial nerves?
Abducens, if he has outward deviation.
About history. Kshitij, we are talking about history only. So my question is, any symptom?
Vision, so
there is no diplopia. Okay, then any other?
Any other? There is no dysphagia.
Yes, dysphagia is one. Then?
Cranial nerves, no, sir. I haven't asked anything else.
Okay. So tell me what important cranial nerves you will look for in patients having hemiplegia?
Sir, firstly the facial, no, because it has localizing value.
Start from one, numerical. You want to look at olfactory? No.
No, sir.
Then you want to look at optic nerve?
No, sir. I'll ask for blurring of vision or...
No, you have to look for optic nerve. That is important. Okay, vision is important, optic nerve. Then any other nerves you want to check for in a patient of hemiplegia?
third, fourth, and sixth
Third,
now.
fourth, sixth now. Then
Then
any
the
other now?
trigeminal now for
Not trigeminal is not important. Trigeminal is not important. Any other now? Ninth and tenth.
vestibulococcalear.
Ninth and tenth now. Ninth, even trigeminal is not so important. Vestibulocochlear is not so important. The localizing values are with 9, 10, the optic nerve, and your third, fourth, sixth nerve. Okay, you can continue with your history.
Yeah. There is no history of urinary incontinence. There is no history of involuntary movements. There is no history of unconsciousness.
No, Kshitij, you have to go stepwise. Now you talked about the motor system. You talked about the sensory system. You talked about the cranial nerves that we discussed. Then any other thing you want to talk about before you
So
go for
now,
involuntary movements and any other?
I am asking about the etiology.
Okay. Then continue.
So the patient is a diagnosed case of hypertension for which he had been started on tab amlodipine, and he has been regular with his medications since the last 2 years. There is no history of unconsciousness. There is no history of headache and vomiting. There is no history of palpitations, chest pain, breathlessness. There is no history of angina or myocardial infarction in the past. There is no history of fever with joint pains. There is no history of falls or trauma to the head. There is no history of diabetes mellitus. There is no history of convulsions. There is no history of bleeding from gums or skin. There is no history of a previous neurological deficit. And there is no history suggestive of tuberculosis. And there is no history of any dental procedures which can suggest infective endocarditis.
Okay, you talked about myocardial infarction. Avoid using medical terminologies in your history. You can say no history suggestive of any chest pain or any cardiac problems. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You are talking about bladder bowel also.
Yes, sir. He has no bladder bowel disturbances.
Okay, no involvement of bladder as well as bowel. What bladder bowel disturbances you expect in a patient of hemiplegia?
So there can be a spastic bladder, and first of all, and
if there is a shock state, if there is a cerebral shock state, then what will happen to the bladder?
Incontinence may occur.
It will be a motor paralytic bladder. Initially, there will be a motor paralytic bladder, but as time progresses, it will be a spastic bladder, small uninhibited bladder, or you can say it is a automatic bladder. Okay. Any other? Continue with your history.
In his personal history, the patient has been a chronic smoker since his adolescence and smokes 20 to 25 BDs per day.
Yes.
And his diet consists of both vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. And there is no family history of stroke, angina, or other cardiovascular diseases.
That you said, no? That you said there is no history of diabetes, hypertension, tuberculosis in the past. Okay. Any other history? Any other history you want to include? Is he a drug abuse? Is he a drug abuser?
No, sir.
No. Okay.
He is a smoker. He is a chronic smoker only.
Okay. Any other history you want to include apart from all this history of complications or anything you want to include? How many days back he had this episode?
4 days back.
4 days back. So, what complications you can expect in a patient of hemiplegia? That history you might have to take.
It can deteriorate and spread to other parts as well. For example, it can involve other areas of the cortex.
No, Kshitij, I am asking history of complication in a hemiplegia. If the patient has got swelling in his legs, bilateral legs which are tender and which are erythematous, what does it mean? He is not moving in the bed.
So deep venous thrombosis.
Deep venous thrombosis. So you have to ask for history of complication also because 4 days have occurred. So one is that. Second complication.
He can have trophic ulcers as well.
Okay, bed sores, trophic ulcers. Then any other history?
Sir, if the lesion bleeds, he can have increased intracranial tension, and that can lead to other
that you have talked about. Now you have talked about headache, vomiting, diplopia is not there, so there's no raised
Yes, sir.
ICT. So any other complication of stroke patient? Does he have cough? Does he have fever? That occurs because of aspiration pneumonia. A patient
Yes,
lying
sir.
in the bed who is semi-conscious or unconscious or stuporous, while faulty feeding method or faulty feeding techniques, he can land up with aspiration pneumonia. So pneumonia, urinary tract infections, bed sores, DVT, these are the common complications that can occur in a patient of hemiparesis. So you might have to take these histories also. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So you talked about motor system. You didn't talk about the other half of the body, the right side, upper limbs and lower limbs.
So there are no complaints in the right side. On examination also I have.
Not examination. On history, any other problem the patient has got on the right side? No.
No, sir.
Okay. We had seen about the cranial nerve. So let's tell me the cranial nerve history. What you should take. You know which are important nerves. So what cranial nerve history you should take?
Cranial nerves. For optic nerves, we can ask for a blurring of vision.
Okay. Near vision, distant vision.
Yes,
color
sir.
vision also you can ask for. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then you're coming to your third, fourth, sixth now. You did ask for diplopia, so you had covered that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then about your ninth and 10th now, you talked about facial also. So talk about symptoms of any facial now.
Facial
you said
nerves
dribbling.
are
Dribbling only you said. Okay. Any other?
Not able to eat properly or losing air of his mouth from his mouth.
No, but that is on history I'm asking. We are taking history only. We are not going for examination. The food stasis in his mouth, that could be one. Other thing is, what about the 9th and 10th now history? Cranial nerve history?
There is issue of dysphagia.
Okay, difficulty in swallowing. Then
there is no dysarthria, that is difficulty in articulating speech.
So he is able to speak properly, you mean to say?
Yes, sir.
He is able to speak properly according to your history. Okay, there is no difficulty.
Facial nerve cause slight difficulty, but
some slurring is there in the speech.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he able to hold his neck properly?
Yes.
Does he have any respiratory muscle weakness, or
no, sir.
Did you feel him to be breathless? No. Okay.
No,
so just summarize your positive findings in the history.
In summary, the elderly gentleman who is a patient of hypertension and a chronic smoker.
Age. Kshitij, you have to talk about first age, sex.
Sorry, sir. So in summary, the 60-year-old male who is a patient of hypertension and a chronic smoker who presented with the acute onset weakness of his left upper limb and lower limbs associated with the weakness of his left face is most... so should I give the diagnosis on history?
No, just summarize your positive findings in the history. Only positive findings in the history.
So positive findings are only these three: weakness in the left upper limb, lower limb, and face.
Face. He is a male, is a positive. He is hypertensive. He is a smoker. Okay. Yes. So in the history, you talked about the name of the patient, the age of the patient, the sex of the patient. You told about the chief complaints. Then you talked about the onset, duration, progress. Then you talked about the cranial nerve history. Then you talked about Your motor you have already covered, sensory also you had already covered. Did you talk about any cerebellar history of cerebellum involvement? Because he is not able to walk, so he is not. You cannot ask him to walk, so he is bedridden a patient. So in this patient, you won't be able to ask cerebellum history. Okay, negative history. Okay, so what is your? You talked about personal history. You talked about his bladder bowel habits.
Yes,
You talked about his addiction history.
I,
Then you talked about his past history, also past medical illness. So
yes.
you have covered most of the points. So what would be a provisional diagnosis?
So he's most likely a case of left-sided dense hemiplegia caused by thrombotic infarct.
Okay, you feel it is thrombotic. Why you feel it is thrombotic, and why not
So
embolic?
embolic would be a very sudden event, and the points supporting thrombosis are that it evolved over a few hours, and also it started when he woke up in the morning. That is also common with a thrombotic etiology.
Okay, come to the general examination now. Why it is not IC bleed? Kshitish, why it is not IC bleed?
Intracranial bleed, sir, it will be when the patient is at um, when he's performing any strenuous activity, or he's very emotional, and also there is no headache or nausea.
So in IC bleed, first thing you should have symptoms of raised ICT like headache, vomiting, diplopia. Patient can be
Yes, sir.
altered, stuporous, comatose. IC
Yes,
bleeds are catastrophic. The patient immediately falls down. He's not able to maintain posture. So
Hmm.
your presentation is not like a IC bleed. Can it be tumor?
So tumor will
It
be
can be a tumor.
over days to months, weeks to months.
Okay. One is the duration. So it will be gradually evolving. It will be gradually increasing in size. Second, you will be having dull headache. Okay.
Hmm.
And in tumor, it will be a gradually progressive, not within 4 days, not
Yes.
acute history. Okay. Any other differential you want to talk about stroke? Suppose the patient was young, then what could be the causes of a young stroke?
So the patient may be having autoimmune conditions which can cause vasculitis, and they can lead to stroke.
See, this is a common question asked. So what are the causes of young stroke? So you have to give multiple, at least 4 or 5 causes you have to sell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Meningitis and encephalitis, if it is a female, and
Encephalitis
if
would not cause. See, the encephalitis would not per se cause a hemiparesis. It would cause altered sensorium, seizures, fever, and all that. So meningitis definitely. So which type of meningitis you want to say? Bacterial, viral, parasite induced. Which meningitis or which organism will cause a vasculitic infarct?
uh, sir, neurocysticercosis may cause a space occupying lesion.
Vasculitis.
That won't be
We are
vascular.
talking about. We are talking about vasculitis. So TB vasculitis is a commonest cause,
Yes, sir.
which can cause a small infarct, and if it is in the if it is in the internal capsule, it might lead to a stroke. So what are the
Yes.
common? Tell about the common things about cardiac, young patient, cardiac etiologies. What are the cardiac
Atrial
etiologies in young?
fibrillation, infective
Atrial fibrillation.
endocarditis, rheumatic heart
Yes.
disease.
Then
Uh, then it can be a mural thrombus,
okay,
which can embolize again.
okay.
Hypertension may cause.
Young
If it is a
hypertensives. Okay.
female, if it is a female and she is consuming oral contraceptive pills, that can lead to a venous embolism.
Venous that will lead to a venous infarct or a
Yes.
venous sagittal sinus or cortical venous sinus thrombosis. So they are not arterial; they are venous type of stroke. Uh, any other you are talking about vasculitis? So which vasculitis will cause stroke in a young
SLE
patient?
vasculitis.
SLE.
Then Takayasu's was
Yes,
arthritis.
Takayasu can cause arthritis, can cause stroke. Then any other syndrome you want to talk about, which is hypercoagulable state,
So protein C and protein S
antiphospholipid,
deficiency.
protein C, protein S, any other antiphospholipid antibodies,
Yes.
okay, ACLA. So if they are positive, then you might have a thrombotic involvement. Okay. So coming to general examination, before that I want to ask one more question. Give me causes of recurrent stroke. We have discussed this just now only. Just recurrent strokes.
Sir, in
Where the stroke occurs
hypertension.
recurrent. No, hypertension, no. You talked about cardiac, no? So atrial fibrillations or patients having multiple sclerosis or demyelinating lesions, they have recurrent stroke. Give me example of stroke mimics. Which condition will mimic stroke?
So it can be psychological, hysterical.
Yeah.
Then hypoglycemia.
You can get
also.
hypoglycemia, a stroke. Okay, any other example which can mimic stroke?
Sir, multiple sclerosis, it can cause
TIS.
Yes.
Pardon? TIS, that is transient ischemic attacks. They can also cause mimic stroke or metabolic encephalopathies. Like you can have hypoglycemia, you can have hyponatremia. They can mimic a stroke. Okay. So coming to your general examination.
The patient is conscious, cooperative, and oriented to time, place, and person. He is moderately built and fairly nourished. He lies supine in his bed with the left upper limb flexed and adducted and the left lower limb extended and adducted. The patient is afebrile to touch. On palpating the radial artery of the right upper limb, his pulse rate is 77 per minute, regular, good volume, and normal in character. His carotid pulsations were normal, and a bruit wasn't heard on auscultation. The blood pressure.
We are talking about. Kshitiz, continue.
Yes, sir. The blood pressure recorded on his right arm in the supine position is 150 by 90 millimeters of Hg. His respiratory rate is 18 per minute. Examination of the spine is normal, and there is no pallor icterus, cyanosis, flubbing, lymphadenopathy, or edema. And there is no soiling of his bed with urine.
Okay. And you talked about his sensorium. You talked about his higher functions. He was conscious? Okay, no, but initially did you say he was conscious?
Yes, sir. Yes,
or anything like that? Okay, he was conscious, cooperative. Okay. Now, coming to your CNS examination.
CNS examination on right side, first of all, is essentially normal. On examination
See, Kshitiz, when you talk about CNS examination, first would be, as I said, higher functions. Then will be cranial nerves. Then will be a motor system examination. Then before the then you will be sensory system examination. Then your reflexes will come. Then your cerebellar signs will come, and neck stiffness will come. So go according to the standard system. So start with your higher functions.
Higher functions, the patient is conscious, cooperative, and oriented to time, place, and person. His immediate, recent, and remote memory is intact. He obeys simple commands and is able to understand and comprehend them. His calculation is normal. He is able to identify both sides of his body. His repetition is normal. So that was higher function.
Then? His speech was normal, you said. His speech was normal?
The speech, he had slight slurring, but repetition was normal.
Okay. What are the points in speech you will have to check if the patient had aphasia?
Sir, his verbal output, his fluency, his repetition, his comprehension.
Reading, writing.
Yes, sir. Reading, writing.
Reading, writing, and naming. Okay.
Yes.
So reading, writing, and naming also you will test in speech. Okay. Okay. Continue. Continue with your motor system examination.
So examining the motor system, there is no obvious wasting present. Examining for nutrition, his arm circumference on both right and left side is 18 centimeters. His forearm circumference on both sides is 13 centimeters. His mid-thigh circumference is 30 centimeters and his calf circumference is 23 centimeters.
Kshitij, give me examples of wasting of the muscles. Which neurological conditions you will get wasting in the muscles?
So mostly in lower motor neuron diseases like motor neuron disease or
okay, MND. Okay. Motor neuron disease. Any other? Myasthenia gravis you won't get wasting. It is in motor neuron disease. Any give me examples of anterior horn cell diseases. Where your anterior horn cell is. You talked about motor. That is ALS only. It is motor neuron. Then polio.
Yes, sir. Poliomyelitis.
You can get syringomyelia is an anterior horn cell. Involvement occurs. Okay. Continue.
There is hypertonia in the form of clasped-knife spasticity in the flexors of his upper limb, left upper limb, and extensors of his left lower limb. Coming to the power at his left shoulder joint for flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, internal rotation, and external rotation is 2/5. For his elbow, for extension and flexion is 2/5. At his wrist, for flexion, extension, abduction, adduction is 2/5. At his hip, for flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, external rotation, and
Kshitij, what about the grip? Kshitij, what about the grip? Hand grip? Is it normal or is it weak?
Sir, it's weak.
It is weak, you mean to say. Okay.
Yes.
And on the right, the power is?
No, sir, it is 5/5 at all joints on the right side.
At all joints. Okay. Coming to the lower limbs, power?
For his hip, for flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, external and internal rotation, it is 2/5. At his knee, for flexion and extension, it is 2/5. At his ankle, for plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, it is 2/5. And at his toes, for flexion and extension, it is 2/5.
Okay. So power on the left upper limb and lower limb is 2/5. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just grade the power. Tell me how you grade the power.
0 is no movement at all. 1 is a slight flicker. Then 2 is movement with gravity eliminated, that is in the horizontal direction. 3 is against gravity but not against resistance. 4 is against gravity and resistance but not to the fullest extent. And 5 is against gravity and resistance and full range of movement is possible.
Okay. So on the right side, the power in the lower limb is normal. It's 5/5.
Yes, sir. Yes,
at
sir.
hip, knee, and ankle. Okay. Continue.
So should I mention reflexes in the motor system itself? Or?
No, pehle sensory, because reflexes involve sensory as well as motor system.
Okay, sir. His sensory systems, his superficial sensations of touch, pain, and temperature were normal, and his deep sensations of joint position, sense, proprioception, and vibration sense are also normal. And cortical sensations like stereognosis and 2-point discrimination were normal on the left as well as the right side.
Okay. You talked about cortical sensations, but even if your primary sensations are normal in hemiparesis, you don't need to talk about cortical sensations. Okay, continue. Then?
His coordination could not be tested due to weakness of his limbs, and no involuntary movements were observed. Examining the reflexes.
Kshitij, name some involuntary movements you know.
Sir, chorea, tremor, athetosis, hemipallismus.
Okay. Okay, hemipallismus. Any other? Dystonia. Yeah, abnormal posturing, not movements, dystonias. But any other involuntary movement, you know,
Uh,
myoclonic jerks.
yes, sir.
Okay, continue.
So coming to the reflexes, on his left side, his superficial reflexes like abdominal and cremasteric reflexes are lost,
Hmm.
are absent, and his an extensor plantar response was observed on the left side. His deep tendon reflexes, including the biceps, triceps, supinator, knee, and ankle jogs, are exaggerated.
Okay. So if your superficial reflexes are lost and your deep reflexes are exaggerated, what does it mean? What do you
So that
interpret
it's
from
an
that?
upper motor neuron lesion.
Okay. Continue.
So now I'll come to the cranial nerves. Sir.
Cranial nerves तो पहले ही बोलना था तुमको. After higher functions, you should talk about cranial nerves, as I told you. So
Yes,
higher
sir.
functions, cranial nerve, then motor. So
Okay.
just don't forget about cranial nerves. Now talk about cranial nerves.
So I'm mentioning the seventh nerve first, since it was involved on history. And there is flattening of his left nasolabial fold. There is drooping of the left angle of his mouth. He is unable to puff his mouth, whistle, show his teeth, indicating weakness of buccinator and orbicularis oris. He can close his eyes completely, and wrinkling of his forehead is normal.
Okay, so it tells you it is a
lower
it is
motor
a element or
neuron.
your upper motor neuron.
Element facial pulse. Sorry, sir.
It
Yeah.
is a, so don't
Upper motor
confuse.
neuron.
Now you have answered it was a lower motor neuron. So now talk about, give me causes of bilateral lower motor neuron lesions of facial nerve.
Sir, in Guillain-Barré syndrome
Okay.
can occur. In sarcoidosis.
Okay. It can occur.
In a pontine stroke.
Okay. Tell me the course of the facial nerve.
So from the cortex, corticobulbar fibers start and come to the contralateral side, and they supply the facial nucleus, which is located at the pons. So the facial nucleus starts from there. It takes a turn. The facial nerve starts from there. It takes a turn around the abducens nucleus. It enters the internal auditory meatus. Then at the geniculate ganglion, it gives the greater superficial petrosal nerve, which ultimately supplies lacrimal and nasopalatine glands.
Yes.
After that, it gives the nerve to stapedius.
Stapedius, yes.
Then it is joined by chorda tympani, and chorda tympani it brings gustatory fibers from anterior 2/3 of the tongue, and also carries parasympathetic supply for the submandibular and sublingual salivary glands.
Okay.
And then it exits through the stylomastoid foramen and supplies the facial muscles.
Facial muscles. Okay. Regarding the any other nerve is involved in the patient, only facial nerve is involved.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can say all nerves examinations are normal except the facial nerve.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cranial nerve you should have told before only, then motor system examination, sensory, and then you talked about reflexes. You talked about cerebellar signs cannot be elicited in these patients.
No, sir.
Okay. So what could be your diagnosis?
My diagnosis is that the patient is suffering from a left-sided dense hemiplegia associated with the left-sided upper motor neuron facial palsy due to an internal capsular infarct of a thrombotic etiology.
Internal capsular infarct. So tell me the parts of internal capsule.
Internal capsule, it has an anterior limb, genu, and posterior limb. And the motor fibers are situated.
it has got sublentiform, retrolentiform parts also, the optic and auditory radiations.
Yes, sir.
So what is
Yes,
present in the anterior, genu and posterior limb?
Sir, at the genu are fibers for the face and head.
Corticobulbar fibers. Genu has got corticobulbar fibers, that is from the cortex to the cranial nerve nuclei in the brainstem. Anterior limb has got
Sensory fibers.
it has got a frontopontine fibers, and it has got some thalamocortical fibers also. The posterior limb has got
The anterior part of the posterior limb contains the pyramidal tract fibers for the
Yes.
motor system.
Okay. Now tell me the blood supply of the internal capsule.
It is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. It's M1 segment.
Anterior limb, genu, posterior limb. Tell me what anterior limb is supplied by the. You talked right. Anterior cerebral artery. The genu is supplied by the.
Genu and posterior is supplied by the middle cerebral artery or lenticular stride branches.
The genu is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. Some part of the anterior limb is also supplied by the middle cerebral artery. The posterior limb is supplied by which artery? What is posterior choroidal artery? Pardon? Posterior choroidal artery, or it's a choroidal artery. So it is supplied by choroidal artery, which is a branch of internal carotid artery. Okay. So anterior limb is supplied by the ACI, that is anterior cerebral artery, the middle cerebral artery. The genu is supplied by the middle cerebral artery. The posterior limb is supplied by the choroidal artery, which is a branch of internal carotid artery. Tell me something about lacunar stroke. What is lacunar stroke?
Lacunar strokes are strokes that occur in very small blood vessels in perforating vessels of the brain.
End arteries. Okay. Yes. So name some end arteries and name the few types of lacunar stroke.
So lacunar strokes types I don't know. It can be a pure motor. It can be a pure sensory.
Then sensory motor.
Sensory motor.
Then dysarthria, clumsy hand, ataxic hemiparesis, and fasciobrachial. Okay. So tell me the end arteries causing lacunar strokes. Anterior cerebral artery gives rise to medial lenticulostriate branches. Cerebral artery gives rise to lateral lenticulostriate branches. The PCA, that is the posterior cerebral artery, gives rise to thalamostriate branches. Okay. So why did I ask about lacunar stroke is I want you to tell me whether the lesion, as you said, is thrombotic. You said it is vascular. This is cortical or subcortical?
Sir, this is
it is located in the cortex or it is located it is subcortical, you may say. Okay. Yes, so what are if the stroke is or if the lesion is in the cortex, so what is classical of cortical lesions?
Sir, cortical lesions, all the three components, the face, head and leg won't be involved. A monoplasia is more likely, and there can be other features as well, like speech disturbances due to involvement of the Broca's and Wernicke's area.
So you mean to say, generally in cortical lesions, it should be a large cortical lesion to cause a hemiplegia. So generally cortical lesions don't cause dense hemiplegia. They cause some weakness in the upper limbs and lower limbs. They are associated with seizures, and the higher functions are affected. So which higher functions are affected in cortical lesions?
It depends on the lobe. If the dominant lobe is involved. If the dominant lobe is involved, the speech can be affected. Okay. And if the non-dominant lobe is involved, there can be hemianopia. where the patient neglects one side of his body.
Okay, so if the left parietal lobe is involved, then you have apraxia, agnosia. What is agnosia? What is apraxia?
Agnosia is not able to recognize faces.
Identify
Yeah.
identify any object, and apraxia is inability to perform sequential motor acts, though your motor system is normal. Okay, what is Gerstmann syndrome?
Gerstmann syndrome involves the parietal lobe, and it consists of alexia, that is inability
Alexia.
to
Just tell me the
then
points. Alexia with or without agraphia,
acalculia,
left right disorientation, and finger
left
agnosia.
leg and finger nose.
And finger agnosia. This is
Yes.
Gerstmann syndrome is whenever you have lesion of the left parietal lobe.
Yes.
Okay. So you feel your lesion is subcortical. So what is classical or subcortical infarct?
Subcortical infarct, sir, all three components will be involved: the face, arm, and
So it is a
leg.
dense
There will be
hemiplegia.
dense hemiplegia, sir, yes.
So
And there
will be a dense
no
hemiplegia. There will be
higher functions will be normal, and
okay.
cranial nerves will also be normal in a subcord.
Okay. What will happen if there is a lesion of the basal ganglia? How do
He will
basal
have,
ganglia lesions?
he can have involuntary movements like tremors.
Okay. So tremors, bradykinesia, rigidity. Any
Yes, sir.
example of basal ganglia lesion or involvement of where the basal ganglia are involved? Where you get
Parkinson's.
tremor, bradykinesia, Parkinson's disease. Okay. So where were you? You were in the diagnosis. So what
Yes,
could be the etiology of this? You localize it to internal capsule. You localize it to middle cerebral artery. So what could be the pathology of the MCA to cause this type of lesion? Thrombosis. Okay. Do you feel it could be atherosclerosis also, causing a thromboembolic phenomenon, or atherosclerosis causing thrombosis, causing an embolic phenomenon? Can it be
Sir,
in this
embolic
patient?
would be very sudden. So.
Okay, so you feel it is less likely?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how you will manage this patient?
Firstly, I'll order a CT scan for the patient, which can rule out hemorrhage.
Okay.
Then, if MRI is available, that is, I'll order an MRI.
Suppose this patient has come to you within 4.5 hours or within 3 hours, what are you going to do?
And then MRI is better because infarcts are not seen on CT scan for about 6 hours.
Okay, but is CT scan important in this patient?
So we can start him on thrombolysis. If
you want to thrombolyze the patient, yes. So within 4.5 hours, if he comes, you can thrombolyze the patient, provided your CT scan should be normal. It should not have any hypodensity. It should not show any infarct. Okay. So you talked about MRI. So which type of MRI you would like to do in this patient?
Diffusion
MRI, diffusion weighted MRI. So you have to answer it. It should be a diffusion weighted MRI.
Yes.
Okay. Which drug you will use for thrombolysis in this patient?
Sir, a recombinant tissue plasminogen inhibitor.
Oh. Okay. So if you want to give RTPA, what should be the blood pressure of the patient? What is the blood pressure criteria for you to thrombolyze the patient? When you would not thrombolyze the patient, and when you would thrombolyze the patient?
So if it is more than 140/90, I can't thrombolyze.
No. If the blood pressure is more than 185/110, you should not thrombolyze the patient. 185/110. Then if it is more than that, you cannot thrombolyze the patient. Now you have, if the blood pressure is less than 185/110, you are thrombolizing the patient. Now, what should be the blood pressure during the thrombolysis procedure or for the 28 hours during and post thrombolysis? It should be
I don't.
less than 180 and diastolic should be less than 105. So during thrombolysis, you have to monitor blood pressure every 30 minutes, then every 60 minutes, and then every 2 hourly and then 4 hourly. For that, the patient should be in, ideally, it should be in neurological ICU. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If the patient has now come late to you, you don't feel of thrombolizing the patient, then what treatment you would like to give to the patient?
Firstly, I'll start him on aspirin, 300 milligram per
300
day.
milligram of aspirin. Okay. Any other drug you want to give?
Sir, atorvastatin can be started on the second day onwards.
Okay. Which dose? High dose, moderate dose, or low dose atorvastatin? Like to give high dose atorvastatin, 80 milligram of atorvastatin you would like to give. So you have started atorvastatin. You have started aspirin also. Preferably start the patient on clopidogrel also. So always give DAPT, dual antiplatelet drugs, for at least 21 days, and then you can convert the patient to aspirin. Okay. Any other thing you would like to add on to the treatment of the patient? What would be the target blood pressure? What would be the target blood pressure for the patient? Suppose 24 hours have passed. 24 hours has passed. He has been admitted. 24 hours have been passed. Now the patient is with you. 2 days are over. So what should be the target blood pressure you should achieve? It should be systolic 160 to 140, and diastolic should be 90 to 100. That should be a target blood pressure you should achieve after 24 or 48 hours. Initially, you can have a permissive hypertension in this patient. Okay. Okay. Any other investigation you would like to do in this patient?
Sir, other routine investigations like ECG, X-ray, baseline
ECG you would like to do. One is ECG you want to do. Second investigation, you have to look at the blood sugar levels.
Yes,
okay. Then any other investigation you want to do? To look for any cardioembolic type of stroke.
Sir, echocardiography of the heart.
Echocardiography you should do. Okay, so always do a CT, do a echocardiography, do a blood sugar, which are very important in these patients. Okay, so give me one. I'll ask you one question. What is the side effect of Altiplase, or what is the adverse effect you should monitor if you are giving Altiplase to the patient? What is the side effect of Altiplase? You are giving Altiplase and suddenly the patient deteriorates. What could be the cause? It could be
anaphylaxis.
Anaphylaxis, angioedema can occur, but the commonest side effect is IC bleed, intracranial hemorrhage. Okay. So intracranial hemorrhage can lead to deterioration of the condition. You will have to stop Altiplase, and what antidote you will have to give then to the patient? You will have to give fresh fluorescent plasma, but better than fresh fluorescent plasma, you have to give cryoprecipitates. Okay, cryoprecipitate tranexamic acid should be given to the patient. Apart from non-medical treatment, what other you will advise to the patient's relative how to take care of a stroke patient? Non-medical management.
So physiotherapy can be started. His diet should be monitored.
So physiotherapy you will start immediately when the patient comes. After how much time you will start physiotherapy?
After 1 week.
No, you can start physiotherapy after 24 hours if the patient doesn't have any signs of raised ICT. So after 24 hours, you can start physiotherapy. But if there is a raised ICT, you have to wait for at least 4 to 5 days before you give physiotherapy. Okay, apart from physiotherapy, you would advise diet.
Yes, sir.
Dietary recommendation should be advised. So your patient has got hypertension, he has got dyslipidemia. So what diet you would advise to the patient?
Low salt intake.
Okay.
First of
So
all,
when
to-
you say low salt intake, how much salt per day? Salt restricted diet, how much salt per day?
so 5 grams per day.
Yeah, so less than 4 or 5 grams per day you should advise. Okay, then low fat diet, you would advise low fat diet. So what type of lipid is permissible, or which is a protective?
So saturated fats are not good for this patient. So
you will give polyunsaturated fatty acids. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Apart from your physiotherapy diet, what other things you would like to advise to the patient regarding bed sores, regarding avoiding of aspiration pneumonia, avoiding DVT in the lower limbs?
The patient should
To
be
keep the patient.
he should try to walk, and his relatives should take care that he does not fall.
Okay, so you should avoid falling, but before that you have to prevent the bed sores. So you have to turn every
Yes.
2 hourly, turn the posture of the patient every 2 hourly. Then you have to advise airbed to the patient. Then if the patient is on RT feeds, then you have to teach the relative how to feed the patient. Otherwise, in supine
Aspiration,
position, if they feed, they will aspiration. So what could be the position of the patient ideally in supine position? What should be the head elevation? It
about
should be how much?
30 to 45 degrees.
Yes, so it should be 30-degree head elevation in supine position.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about diet, we talked about physiotherapy, we talked about your nursing care. Okay, bed sore dressing has to be done regularly. To prevent DVT, what device you would advise to the patient? Apart
Stockings
from
can be advised.
elastic stocking, elastic stockings are not so recommended. What more you would advise the patient? Intermittent pneumatic compression devices.
Okay.
So that will prevent the DVT. Apart from that, would you advise any heparin to the patient? Any low molecular heparin you would advise as a DVT prophylaxis? You can advise once a day, okay,
Yes.
to the patient. Okay. You always have to screen the patient for depression. That is one of the guidelines in recent stroke updates on stroke. One of the recent guidelines is you have to look at depression of the patient. You have to treat the depression also if the patient is depressed.
Yes.
Okay. So I think your case you presented it well. You should look at the treatment part. You should look at properly, because there
Yes,
could be questions on the treatment aspect also. And otherwise, the presentation was good. You were confident in presenting. Okay.
Thank you.
So